Today we'll be talking about the vascular supply to the lower extremities. This is by Sarah Bezichuk, Sarah Siambor, Jesse Harder, and Abby Privetti. What is vascular supply? So the vascular system is also known as the circulatory system. It consists of vessels that carry blood and lymph to the body. It also functions, the arteries function to transport oxygen-rich blood and nutrients from the heart to the extremities, both the upper and lower, while the veins return oxygen-depleted blood to the heart, and the capillaries are the area where the exchange happens. The heart pumps blood to all parts of the body. After blood is oxygenated by the lungs, it returns to the heart. At this point, the descending aorta is where the blood is mainly supplied to the trunk, pelvis, and lower extremities. So as the blood flows through the descending aorta, it breaks into these branches and reaches in sequence the thorax, abdomen, and pelvic regions. Then it goes to smaller arteries, then to capillaries where the oxygen is transferred. After this, the deoxygenated blood travels back through the veins, which collect, and blood is returned to the heart via the inferior vena cava.
Here is an overview of the vascular supply of the trunk. We can see the aortic arch descending to the thoracic aorta, which then branches off into the abdominal aorta. This then flows into the iliac arteries. Within each of these main arteries, there are other branches that divide off and give blood supply to specific organs. Here is a broader picture of the vascular supply in the trunk. There are main sections that come off the aorta. It begins with the descending thoracic aorta, and then this becomes the abdominal aorta. It then branches off into the left and right common iliac artery. Branching off the abdominal aorta is the celiac trunk, seen in blue. These branches include the common hepatic, the splenic, and the left gastric. The left gastric artery, shown in green, gives blood supply to the lesser curvature of the stomach as well as the lower esophagus. The common hepatic artery, shown in orange, gives blood to the liver, the pylorus of the stomach, the gallbladder, duodenum, and the pancreas. Finally, the splenic artery, shown in red, gives blood to the upper and middle area of the greater curvature of the stomach, as well as the fundus in the area of the pancreas. It also gives blood to the spleen.
Alright, here is the descending abdominal aorta,
which turns into the common iliac artery.
And that divides off to the external iliac artery, the left and the right, and then the internal iliac artery branches off the external.
The common iliac artery originates at the level of the fourth lumbar vertebra. It ends in front of the sacroiliac joint as it splits into the internal and external iliac arteries. The common iliac artery also supplies blood to the pelvic region and the legs.
The internal iliac artery is the main artery of the pelvis. The internal iliac artery is the main artery of the pelvis. It comes from the common iliac artery. The pathway of this artery is that it runs downward along the lateral wall of the pelvis, and then crosses the linea terminalis and descends to the lesser pelvis through the upper part of the greater sciatic foramen. And lastly, it divides into the anterior and posterior trunk. The external iliac artery runs inferiorly and laterally. The external iliac artery runs inferiorly and laterally along the medial border of the psoas major muscle, as shown on the right. It then descends down the middle of the inguinal ligament, eventually leaving the pelvic cavity, continuing as the femoral artery. The function of the external iliac artery is to supply blood to the muscles and the skin in the lower abdominal wall. When it continues down as the femoral artery, it then provides blood to the lower limb.
Why is this information clinically significant? Various circulatory system diseases exist, including atherosclerosis, which is a hardening of the arteries, a myocardial infarction, which is the technical term for a heart attack, peripheral artery disease, which refers to narrowing of the arteries that lead to the legs, stomach, arms, and head. This reduced blood flow also can damage the cells and tissues in the limbs, organs, and brain. Celiac artery compression system, which is angina, defined as chest pain caused by reduced blood flow to the heart, which is localized to the upper abdomen due to compression of the celiac artery. And lastly, an aortic aneurysm may occur, which is covered in more depth on the next slide. An aortic aneurysm can develop anywhere along the aorta and is classified based on where it occurs. A thoracic aortic aneurysm occurs in the chest area, abdominal aortic aneurysms occur in the abdominal area, and thoracoabdominal aortic aneurysms are a combination of the two. An aortic aneurysm develops as the artery wall in the aorta weakens and blood forces the wall to expand. The resulting shape of the wall may be classified as fusiform, where the arterial wall balloons out equally on all sides of the aorta, and this is relatively more common. A saccular aneurysm, where the wall balloons out to one side of the aorta. And lastly, a pseudoaneurysm, or also known as a false aneurysm, is enlargement of only the outer layer of the blood vessel wall. This may be the result of prior surgery or trauma.